Now, I don't know if the microphone is going to pick it up, but we do have a whole bunch of crows outside my window. It's an overcast, cloudy day here in Vancouver, and I don't know, all the crows seem to have hung out in a little spot near my bedroom. Therefore, if you hear a few caws here and there, they're just being really loud right now. That's my apologies, I can't really control that. But either way, we have ourselves a video that I wanted to make about the Minnesota Wild and St. Louis Blues series. Now, if you're a Wild fan, and I know we have a few Wild fans that tune into this channel once in a while, so I'm very appreciative of you spending your time here with us today. There are a whole bunch of things that you can talk about when it comes to this series as a whole. Kevin Fiala and his disappearance, you have the top-tier talents in Kaprizov doing their thing, but nobody else really stepping up. The fact that the Blues ended up blowing out the Wild in this series to take the ultimate victory, to face the Colorado Avalanche in the second round, and then you have the goaltending as well. You had, for all intents and purposes, a pretty good goaltender in Cam Talbot doing his thing. However, when the Minnesota Wild acquired Marc-Andre Fleury from the Chicago Blackhawks in a trade, things became very interesting when you look at how these goaltenders were played in the postseason. Marc-Andre Fleury had himself his fair share of starts in the games. He started games 1 to 5. However, the Blues ended up taking a 3-2 series lead. Cam Talbot was then asked to start Game 6, which he did, wherein the Blues ended up losing 5-1. This entire situation was weird, mostly because Cam Talbot was indeed that guy, and for a good chunk of the year there were a lot of people thinking, okay, yeah, Talbot is going to be the guy. I mean, he's got a .911 save percentage, 32-12-4 was his regular season record, which is certainly not bad. And with all the context in the background of the Wild and their salary cap situation, the guys are going to have to re-sign. The fact that Talbot does expire next year, where he's going to be 34 years old for the entire time, or excuse me, 35, this is a really interesting move to go out there and get another goaltender, use him as your number one, and sort of quote-unquote disregard the work that Cam Talbot put in this season. You have articles coming out now talking about how the Wild need to repair their relationship with Cam Talbot. And don't get me wrong, there's an entire commentary we can make about that too. Not to mention, of course, all the other problems that the Minnesota Wild have experienced in this playoff run. The fact that Minnesota sport teams just can't seem to get a break. It's been a trend like that for years. But what I also wanted to focus on was the guy coming in to take Talbot's net. Marc-Andre Fleury. Because when Fleury was acquired by the Wild from the Chicago Blackhawks in a trade at the trade deadline, we had ourselves a very specific stipulation that was put onto the pick that made a lot of people sort of concerned with where the Chicago Blackhawks were coming from. This is the initial trade, which sent Fleury to Minnesota. It's a 1-for-1 trade. Fleury goes over to the Wild with $3.5 million of retained salary. That's half his entire cap hit. He's making $7 million total as an AAV for this season. And in exchange, the Wild sent over a 2022 conditional second-round pick. The conditions goes as follows. The pick upgrades to a 2022 first if Minnesota reaches the Western Conference Finals, and Fleury has at least 4 wins in the first 2 rounds. The condition was not met. Chicago now receives Minnesota's second-round pick rather than their first, and I know a lot of St. Louis Blues fans are fist-pumping in the air right now saying, yeah, heck yes, baby, we screwed over the Chicago Blackhawks by winning against Minnesota as well. There's a pretty substantial difference here when it comes to the quality of the pick, because should Minnesota actually make it to the Western Conference Finals, their 2022 first-round pick would lie in the range of 29 to 30 overall. If they make the Stanley Cup Finals, that pick becomes 31 or 32, depending on if they win or lose in that final series. So, with Minnesota's defeat at the hands of the Blues, Chicago is going from what would have been 29, 30, 31, 32nd overall to 56th overall in exchange for Fleury, and that's it. Here's Ben Pope's tweet about the entire situation. So much for the Wild making it to the conference final. They're about to lose in the first round. That means the Blackhawks will receive Minnesota's second-round pick rather than first from the Fleury trade. The Hawks could have had 2 firsts. Instead, they have 0. The bright side is, though, and Ben does go out there and highlight this, the Hawks will have 5 picks in the second and third rounds. If the Oilers can somehow make the Stanley Cup final, they could have 3 seconds. Again, that was from the Duncan Keith trade? Anyways, Ben's point actually does remain true here that the Blackhawks do not have any first-round picks this year. They sent their first over to Columbus in that Seth Jones trade, which was a pretty... Okay, look, Seth Jones has been good for the Blackhawks in terms of the numbers, but he's still Seth Jones, and that pick is now going to be 6th overall, so it comes down to whether or not you value Seth Jones and what he is for the Blackhawks right now, plus that woolly mammoth-sized contract that he has. Or would you rather value that 6th overall pick instead in a draft where you could probably get somebody like a Brad Lambert or a Matthew Savoy or somebody else in that area? I don't know about you, but for a rebuilding team, I do feel like the draft pick would be more of a beneficial part to your organization long-term than what Seth Jones could provide, but that's just me. And then, of course, you have the entire angle here saying that Marc-Andre Fleury got sent over for a 2nd rather than a 1st, making Chicago just not have any first-round picks this year in general. It's kind of funny because I know for Minnesota, St. Louis, Chicago, you guys all don't like each other. So St. Louis defeating Minnesota, it's fun for the Blackhawks fans because, haha, Minnesota, you're losing again. But then, oh no, we don't have any first-round picks, so okay, we probably should have been cheering for Minnesota anyway. For Minnesota, there's just so much doom and gloom going on right now, and it's kind of weird taking a stroll through the Wild subreddit because I visit all the team subreddits throughout the NHL season, just checking up on the stories, seeing what's going on, and Minnesota has always been one of the better ones to read because just looking at all the stats, talking about the guys that are doing well, this and that and the other thing, it's fun seeing the rise up of Kirill Kaprizov. That guy was an absolute monster in the postseason. It's awesome seeing the prospects and how they transition into the NHL as rookies. Minnesota is a hockey state, so there's a lot of stories, right? But man, it's been so different seeing everything post-playoffs because it's been so, oh, you know, Minnesota is Minnesota. It's always going to happen. This team was never good enough. We got to fire the coach. We got to trade all these guys. Now we're in a cap crunch. Kevin Fiala's gone because the guy didn't show up in the postseason, all this and all that. So, yeah, there's kind of a dichotomy there for sure. If you're a Minnesota Wild fan, though, let me know in the comments all your thoughts. Any, video topics or conversations you want to have about the postseason? I didn't really watch too many of the games, to be honest, because there were a lot of other games, mostly involving Canadian teams, that would also be on around that time, and, yeah, I kind of had my priorities in other areas. Don't worry, though, because I still do acknowledge the bigger stories, like Kaprizov and everything, but either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What other Minnesota Wild things do you want to highlight? There is an entire conversation, or 5, I guess, that you could have about Kevin Fiala, because there are a whole bunch of teams and fan bases that want this guy and his services. If you're a St. Louis Blues fan, hey, let me know your thoughts in the comments. How does it feel to screw the Chicago Blackhawks over into not getting a first-round pick with this 4-2 series victory? How are you feeling against the Colorado Avalanche? They're the big bad Avalanche for a reason, and this is the team that a lot of people do have going to the 3rd round, myself included. So I personally am not really expecting too much, but, you know, crazier things have happened before, and I do have the Colorado Avalanche losing in my 3rd round to Calgary, so we'll see where exactly that goes down. And then Chicago fans, how does it feel knowing that you gave up your 6th overall pick for Seth Jones, knowing that you could have had another first for Marc-Andre Fleury? Instead, you ended up getting a 56th overall pick. And now, where do you go from here? Because the conversation opens up as to where the Blackhawks can retain or revitalize some of their draft capital. They don't have a first-round pick this year. Do you expect to trade anybody to get a first-round pick? Brandon Hagel was traded away earlier, but that guy didn't net you a first in this year's draft. It was 2 conditional firsts for next year and 2024. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this entire Fleury screwing over the Hawks because of the Wild and their ineptitude in the postseason thing. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.